to the show.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Off the Mats Podcast. And this week on the podcast, I'm going to be welcoming a gentleman who is a jiu-jitsu grappler. And he and I share, besides jiu-jitsu in common, we both share medical, I wouldn't say history, but kind of similarities, I guess, in the fact that we both have an ostomy. And for those of you who may not be aware, I have a colostomy. I mentioned it, several times on the show. And my guest here, James Humberstone, he also has, is it a colostomy or?
I have an ileostomy.
Okay.
So no large intestine left.
Gotcha. I always, because whenever I think about it, I always feel like, oh, everyone who has one, this is a colostomy. We're all one pocket, but no, there are others. So as you heard there's my guest here, James, and welcome to the show, my friend. Thank you for doing this. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing good. Yeah, it's nice to finally get to talk to you. You were one of the first people I found online when I was starting to think about getting into jiu-jitsu and trying to find out if there was anyone with an ostomy doing jiu-jitsu. So it's good to finally meet you and chat with you.
Well, thank you. Same here. And I remember when you reached out to me back on Facebook, actually, and you had mentioned to me you were, I don't know if you had already been training and then, your coach found out, or if you were looking to train, you wanted to warn them ahead of time. But you had mentioned that the gym didn't want you to train because of, just concerns. And just hearing that, my mind was blown because I was like, wow, really? Like, well, that's so bizarre. So I guess, could you tell me a little bit more about that situation, just how that came about, like going into it, and then your feelings, when you got the news?
Yeah. So at the time I live in central Canada. At the time I was living on the West Coast, in Victoria, BC, on Vancouver Island there. It's a bit of a smaller city, so there was not like a ton of places to train. But I've been like a fan of jiu-jitsu for a while. Like I've watched a lot of jiu-jitsu tournaments, and I had UFC Fight Pass. They got like jiu-jitsu tournaments coming out your years on there, and you can watch tons and tons of footage. So I kind of knew the difference between what a solid jiu-jitsu looked like versus bad jiu-jitsu. And I found the one gym in town where I like these guys know what they're doing. And I wanted to go with someone who knew what they were doing because I wanted to be safe. And I just wanted to learn from people who knew what they were doing. So I reached out to that gym, and I told them that I had my ostomy. I wasn't even sure if I wanted to do it, but I'd been thinking about it for so long. I was like, I'm just going to reach out, and if they say yes, I don't have to, I can just think about it, So I reached out, and then they just didn't feel like it was a good idea. He didn't see how it was possible that an ostomy would stay on. I think he compared it to having a Band-Aid on. He said, if you have a Band-Aid on, it'll come off during training, and I just didn't feel like, because he was the expert, I didn't feel like I could argue with him. So I kind of just said, okay, thanks. Thanks for the reply. He was a nice guy and he gave me a thoughtful reply. But then when I started looking, I started looking further into it, and that's when I found you. And I noticed, looking in Reddit and stuff like that, a lot of guys were saying, it's not going to work. It's a bad idea. and it was either guys who did jujitsu but didn't have an ostomy, so they didn't know what it was like to grapple with an ostomy, or guys who used to do jujitsu and now they have an ostomy and they don't do jujitsu anymore, saying it wouldn't work. But then I found you, and I'm like, well, the one guy who says it can work is the one guy who has jujitsu experience and an ostomy. Like, he's the only guy who actually knows. So yeah, that's when I reached out to you and like started doing my homework. And yeah, I just wanted to. I didn't have another gym in Western Canada that I wanted to approach, but I wanted to make sure that when I found a gym, like I could say, hey, you could talk to this guy if you have any questions. You know, this guy does it. You know, it can be done. And so that's when I started doing my homework, and yeah, I got to know you there. And first thing I found was your YouTube videos. And then when I reached out, when I found you on Facebook, it just happened that you replied to my post in one of the ostomy communities, and I had seen your videos so on YouTube there.
So it's interesting, that you bring up that the people who are saying that it wouldn't work and it's not a good idea were people who didn't have an ostomy.
Right.
And that tends to be, that's a very human thing anyway. Like, that's what we do.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
you can't do that.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't expect them to understand. Like, yeah, like I think the idea of an ostomy is a lot worse than reality. And like
That is
people
a
don't
fact.
understand that it can be neat and tidy and like,
Mhm.
you can do stuff with it.
Most people, but actually not just most, everyone that I know that has known me, I've had this all my life. I've had it since on and off in childhood. I think the last major surgery, I want to say I was 5 or 6, and I'm 45 now. So
Mm-hmm.
I've had about, 40 years or so. And I've played football, basketball, jiu-jitsu. I'm a rough and tumble kid. I remember I put this post on Instagram, and it was a picture of me in my gi with my shirt pulled up, exposing my bag. And I had a lot of old classmates and football teammates reaching out to me saying, "You you you played football with that? Like, you've done all these things with that?" And to me, it didn't seem like anything spectacular or miraculous or anything. It was just life to me.
Mm-hmm.
But again, people from the outside, if you don't know, you think like, oh my God, that is that's wild that you can do that. And like the coach who replied to you, compared it to having a band-aid on. How can it stay on while training? I mean, it's not as difficult as it would seem. I mean, even to the point for myself, sometimes I take precautions. I'll bandage up, like I'll take an ace bandage. I'll take a neoprene brace, and I wear a back brace as well. So I'm very, very covered up to, number one, protect my stomach, but also just keep things in place if I get really sweaty and it comes off, things like that. I remember in one of the ostomy groups on Facebook, because I'm going to be honest, before this group, I think there are 3 groups I'm in. Before these groups, I, not to think like, oh, I'm the only person that exists out there, but I didn't think that there was such a community like that. So there's like just regular, living with the ostomy, and then there are athletes with ostomies. And the one thing I noticed in that athletes group, there was a lot of runners, a lot of swimmers, no grapplers.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, hey guys, I'm here. And um, I there's a good friend of mine now. He lives up in Detroit, actually where I'm from originally. He boxes and grapples and everything, and he has an ostomy. And you know it's cool to hear these things, knowing Like we're out there, we can do these things, but not like we know we can do these things, but letting the rest of the society know that we can do these things because, like you said, they look and think like, oh wow, it's impossible. You can't do that. Like
Yeah,
how? Why?
yeah. And it can get to you sometimes. Like
Mhm.
sometimes people can get in your head and you can start to doubt yourself. So like
Yeah,
yeah, it's nice to see people out there actually doing stuff and not totally ending their life because they've got an ostomy now when that's
yeah,
not necessary.
yeah. I have a friend. I actually haven't spoken to him in a while, but right before COVID locked everything down, he was going into some procedure, and he was going to need to have a an ostomy himself. He reached out to me after seeing a couple posts on Facebook, and he's explaining what's going on with him and asking just basically the transition and how difficult would it be for him. And the one thing that I am very honest about when it comes to this is like I don't know because I've had this since I was a child. So I can't tell someone that their experience would be any different than mine. I could say back in the 80s, for me as a little kid, I spent a lot of time in the hospital. Just they didn't even really know. So having to spend a lot of time in the hospital, there's a lot of trial and error. Like, oh my God, like so many messes around the house because I didn't know. I had to go to, I guess, what you would call a handicap school. I guess at the time, I don't know what the fuck, but I went to a school with special needs children because they weren't sure like how this works for me. So I remember being on the school bus, you know, with kids, in wheelchairs and you know, like intellectually delayed individuals, and I'm looking around, I was like, something's not right about this. Like, I don't think I belong here. And once I hit third grade, I think they're like, hey, I think you can handle this yourself. I think you're fine. I still had to change for PE in a separate room, like a separate locker room, just because I think they were looking out for me. They didn't want me to get teased or picked on. And up into high school, that's how I operated. Once high school hit, I was like, you can say something if you want. like, like, like one or two things will happen. I'll point out that like, you know what the fuck you're talking about, or we'll fight. And
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't going to lose that fight.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so when you were told that you couldn't train at that gym, and you began doing kind of your own homework on your end, like was it a heavy thing on your mind, or were you just like this is something I wanted to do, but I'll circle back to it when the time comes.
Yeah, I think when it initially happened, it was a bit heavy because like I had been thinking about jujitsu again for such a long time, even before I had my ostomy, and like I had finally like gotten up the nerve to reach out to a gym and try to get myself into it, and then it was kind of over, and like I said, there wasn't any other gyms in town that I was really impressed with that like I felt like comfortable reaching out to. So I felt like a little, yeah, I definitely felt like it took the wind out of my sails for sure. And I think at the time I felt like, well, that's this, like that's that. I'm not going to do jujitsu, and that's just how it's going to be. But yeah, then I moved to Central Canada, and like I'm living in another small city here, but I just have like I do a video and like media work, and I just happened to do a video for the jujitsu gym, and like I met the professor, and he was a super nice guy, and I just got the feeling like this guy's gonna like do whatever he's got to do to get me in there. Like I just felt I could just tell by the kind of guy he was. So yeah, I when I finally reached out again, like it was kind of just like yeah, like it came out of nowhere. Like all of a sudden I had this opportunity to ask again. And like I like wrote a big email, and like I had videos, I had your videos, I had other videos of other people with ostomies, and I had, you know, like I explained myself and said this is why I think I could do it. And like, yeah, he was just like totally opposite. He was just totally for it. Like, yeah, I have no problem with it. And I hope you do come, and I hope you do come train with us.
Good, good.
So yeah, like, there was definitely a period of time where I thought like this isn't going to be a thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I could imagine. There's that moment, especially when there's the one gym that you felt was the gym. It's like, all right, these guys going
Yeah.
to be safe, and to their credit, you know, they were being safe. They were keeping you safe in that regard, I guess.
Yeah.
Um,
And like
but
part of like what I was looking for, like with jujitsu, like I said, I work in media, and like a lot of my friends are like media people, and like a lot of my hobbies is like doing media stuff, like videos and podcasts, and like I didn't have anything that wasn't like work related that I was doing. I was like, I need something that's totally not work related, and then like I want to like get down like with the culture at the gym and like meet people and like make friends, and like this particular gym just seemed to have like a really good culture. And like so like there was probably a couple other gyms I could have reached out to in Victoria there, but like I was just let down that this particular gym wasn't going to have me, and they were the ones I wanted to be with. So
yeah, when I went in to initially train, I so I went to one gym for a trial class. I didn't end up staying with that gym, but my friend who I joined that day, he was already training there. He worked with me because he was aware of my stomach, and he did a good job at making sure not to press on my stomach or anything. And then I just decided not to stick with that gym. It just didn't feel like the right fit for me. Fast forward to maybe a year later, a little less than a year later, the gym that I initially, signed up with and really started grappling, and where the video was shot as well, that you saw on YouTube, was Ivy League MMA. And I didn't tell anyone at all. I didn't tell anyone for probably a year, maybe. Trying to think, because I started training and just no. So I put the pictures up on Instagram about 3 months in. My coach reached out to me, and he didn't know what the hell it was. I think his ex wife saw the pictures because she was more frequent on social media than he was. So she told him, I go to class the next time, and he comes. I was like, Dante, you, you wear a catheter bag? And I don't know what the fuck that is, but no, I don't. I have a colostomy, and he was like, genuinely curious. So we sat and talked, and then he mentioned like, it might be a good idea, maybe put a video out about that. I was like, okay, that's fine. I'm not very big on showing my face on social media or anything. I'm just no, no. I'm bashful, but I took his advice. We put together the video, and it was in my early white belt days. So I look at that video, I'm like, oh my god, I was so bad. That's the only thing I take from that video. Like, it's like, oh yeah, he's doing jujitsu with a colostomy, and I'm looking like, oh no, that's not jujitsu, dude. I'm just bald. But I think one of the things when you had reached out to me, my initial thought was, dude, that sucks. You know, I'm sorry to hear that. But then I also thought, I was like, I mean, there is also just go in and train. Just, take your precautions beforehand and just go in and train without telling anyone. And The risk to that though is neon belly for sure. People, and even where I am now, a lot of people don't know about my colostomy.
Yeah, it's been the same with me. Like the coach knows, but I've been surprised no one's noticed, no one's asked, no one's like felt it or like
Hmm.
seen it. You know.
Yeah, I always think about it too when I am training. For those who do know, like there's one of our, I guess he just got promoted to purple belt. Uh, Big guy, big strong guy, and the friendliest guy you could ever encounter. But you get on the mats with him, and he'll wrist lock you without hesitation. Um, I spoken with him about it because he's a big fella, and I was like, look, he might ragdoll me. Let me let this dude know right now. So, um, but I told him after one of our rolls, he had put a gnarly neon belly on me. He like, I was suffering. And like when I told him, I was like, "Oh my god, dude, I'm so sorry. Like, why didn't you tell me when I was doing the neon belly?" I was like, "What?" And part of this for me is like, I don't want people to roll differently with me because of it. I guess when I say that, I want you to be cautious, but like cautious in the sense of like, if I tell you I got a bad knee, don't go for a knee bar. Um, and even with the neon belly, you can go for neon belly on me. It's my responsibility to get away from it or prevent it. So that's kind of always my thought, which is why I don't tell a lot of people what I want to tell him, because I could just tell he's not reckless. He's not a hurt, like he's not out there hurting teammates, but he's training to win. He's prepping for competitions. So he's putting beat downs on people, and I'm like, yeah, I think I might actually get in a situation with this dude where like it'll could just get ugly. But that is a risk of if you don't tell anyone, you go in and train, and then something happens, and no one there knows.
Mm-hmm.
No
Mm-hmm.
one knows what to do. No one knows how to help you. But then on the other side of it, though, too, is you don't get people treating you differently.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a concern.
Yeah. And that's a big thing I think with like an ostomy. Like you don't want to be treated like you're not normal.
Yes.
It's just that way with any kind of medical thing, I think.
Hmm.
But yeah, I had the same concern, especially knee and belly. I'm a smaller guy too. A lot of the guys at the gym are bigger, quite a bit bigger. So like their knee covers my whole torso almost. So like it's hard to get away from. But so far, I've been in a beginners class that's been pretty light sparring. So like
Okay.
I'm kind of easing into it still.
Good. Good. And how long have you had your ostomy?
I had one when I was a kid as well. Like when I think I got my first one when I was 10,
Okay.
10 years old, and then I had it all the way through high school. Then I got it reversed, and I was okay. Like I had Crohn's, and
Okay.
I was healthy enough with the reversal, and I had no problems till I was about 27. And then I started having problems again, and like the reversal just went like it just expired, and it wasn't working anymore. And I tried to save it. I had a couple surgeries to try to bypass it and rest it and see if I can get the reversal going again, but it just didn't work. So uh, yeah, when I was around 27, 28, I had the permanent ostomy done, and now I'm 38. So yeah, I've had it about 10 years again.
Okay.
Yeah.
When I was a freshman in high school, yeah, I believe about a freshman in high school, or no, actually before high school, so eighth grade, they offered a reversal, and I declined because I thought about. I was like, man, I'm about to go into high school, and I've like, I'd have to be potty trained.
Hmm.
I was like, I don't know if that's a good idea for me to go into high school. I'm already the new kid, the weird kid, the quiet kid. Now I'm going to be the smelly kid. Like,
Hmm.
and then they hear the diaper. Like, nah, nah. Let's just pass on that.
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
it's weird because it's like you have the bag that crinkles in itself, but it. I just decided I don't want to do it. It's I'd already had too many surgeries up to that point, and it just wasn't something that I felt like would benefit me, other than the ideal of being normal by society standards.
Hmm.
So I decided for myself to just stay with what I have because it's a part of me at this point. So I just decided let's keep rocking with it. And I remember my grandfather. He tried to convince me because again I'm at that age where he's like, well, one of the things that could become a problem is having a girlfriend. I
Hmm.
was like, I remember saying to him, I was like, yeah, I'm not really stressed about that because at that time, only thing that was important to me was comic books and football. I, not that I didn't look at girls like, oh, hey, girl, what's up? How you doing? But it was like, if they like me, they like me. If they don't, they don't. And that's always been my attitude. Like, look, at some point, people are gonna have to find out about this, and if they're cool with it, I appreciate it. If they're not cool with it, I appreciate knowing that they're not cool with it, and I know where not to invest my time. So and now hearing your story had the reversal, and then it kind of expired and just didn't take later on. It makes me wonder if they would have done that to me back in what 92, and then somewhere down the line, about 10 years or so, I got to go back in and now have it made permanent. And it's like, well, we went through an extra step that I probably didn't need to go through. So
Hmm.
I don't know. I
Yeah,
I still think about it a lot.
yeah, yeah. I like. I don't know what I like now. I'm permanent. Like I can't. There's not. I got nowhere else to go now. I'm permanent ostomy. But I think about like what would I do if I could have a reversal again? And like there's some days where it's like yeah, fuck yeah, I'd take it. But at the same time, I feel so much more healthy with my ostomy. I gain weight more. Like I was rail thin without it, and like I could eat less without it. Like I'd get plugged up easy, and like
Yeah.
um yeah, it's just like the reversal was like the only thing good about it was you didn't have an ostomy. Like I still had symptoms that I don't have
Mm.
anymore. I was still kind of like, and some of the symptoms were pretty brutal. Like I'd get like when with Crohn's, like you'll get like really swollen like joints. My
Mhm.
ankles would get so swollen I couldn't walk, and like so aside from that, I was healthy. But like I'd like go to a day at work and like I couldn't walk the next day, and like since I had my uh, permanent ostomy done, I don't have those problems anymore.
Good.
So yeah, like if I could have a reversal again, I don't know if I do it as well. Like I'm there's some days where I just hate the thing.
Sure.
I just can't stand it. But overall, like I feel so much more healthy with it. Yeah, and I look better. I feel better. Yeah.
Good. Good. Do you have any like dietary restrictions? Mm.
No, no, not really. Like, there's some things that I can't eat, like just really specific things, like mandarin oranges. Like they got that like weird skin on them.
Hmm.
Yeah, stuff like that. Like corn, obviously I can't eat, but
Yeah.
I've found that like I've tried everything. I've tried like vegetarian. I've tried everything like to see like what's gonna work the best for me. And personally, for me, I find that eating a lot of meat and only select vegetables makes me feel the best. So yeah, I eat a lot of meat and like then like select greens like broccoli I'll eat or asparagus I'll eat. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah.
That makes sense. I think I'm kind of in a similar um, area when it comes to food.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny because it's like I always just say I don't necessarily like corn anyway,
Mm-hmm.
so I just don't eat it. Period. Like my wife, like if I'm grilling, she'll go, make some corn on the cob and boil that up, and it's like, I'm just like, okay, cool. It's not for me. A big part of it is just, eating corn and gets stuck in my teeth. So not even thinking about the effects it has on my stomach is like, ugh, I don't want
It's just
that.
annoying.
Yeah, it's a pain in the ass. Why am I going to eat that? But um, you know, it like I actually do have some trouble with beef. Something not often. I think it's like if I have it like a whole lot without throwing something like chicken in there or cutting it with something else. But there's some days I'm just craving it, and I want a steak, I want a burger in back to back sittings or days or something.
Oh yeah,
Life.
yeah. I eat a lot of beef, but I find when you can get it, bison's really good. It's a lot like
Mm,
beef, but it's less greasy. It's like more lean. It's easier on your stomach.
yeah,
Um,
that's a good call.
yeah, I have a little bit of trouble with like chicken off the bone, like like chicken breasts and stuff like that. They bother me for some reason. I think because sometimes they get pumped full of water, salt water,
Yeah,
just to like make them plump and juicy. So like sometimes that bothers my stomach a bit. But chicken on the bone is good. Or like yeah, like I said, bison's a big one that I really like when I can get it.
I might have to look into that. I know with chicken breasts, for the longest time as a kid, I would say I could only really eat chicken as a kid.
Hmm.
Like that's just what felt the best in my stomach. And I got to a point where I hated chicken so much.
Hmm.
I just couldn't stand chicken. So whenever my wife bakes like chicken breasts, I oftentimes like I'll call or text, hey, what do we have for dinner tonight? She's like, oh, I was going to throw some chicken in the oven. So okay, cool. Then I'll stop somewhere else, like eat on the way home, like eat in the car. Now get home, like, man, all right, ready to have this chicken. You know, like nibble a little bit of, but I don't eat like a whole bunch just because, like, I'm tired of it. Number one, just all my life tired of it, but also I don't feel great after eating it. Like I love drumsticks, chicken
Hmm.
thighs.
Hmm.
Like if you tell me there's a wing eating competition, I'm there. You
Hmm.
can't stop me. But yeah, as far as meats go, I'll have to look into bison. I never even thought about it because the point that you brought up about it's less greasy.
Yeah, yeah, it's all muscle,
Never
so
heard.
like there's hardly any fat in it.
Hmm. Huh. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Um, so with your training right now, and just like so you're doing the beginners classes, so it's very very limited sparring for you at the moment. How are you liking everything? So far. How long you been training? Also.
Yeah, good. When did I start? I think I started in December,
Okay.
and just been going once a week. And yeah, like I had planned. Like right now, it's just beginners and it's all no gi. I
Okay.
had planned to at this point be in regular classes and doing traditional and no gi, but like yeah, I just felt like I wasn't in great shape. Like I was having trouble with certain things. Like my core strength was is like obviously a bit messed up from all the surgeries and stuff.
Sure.
So and like I'm a pretty small guy, but I wasn't like benefiting from anything that a smaller guy would usually benefit from. Like my cardio wasn't great, and like I wasn't quick and agile. So like I just thought like I'm gonna stick with the beginners classes for a bit, and then I'm gonna do some like do some working out, build up my strength, do some yoga, get a little more flexible, just take it nice and slow, and then like yeah, like I can't wait to get into like regular classes where I can go more than once a week. But
Sure.
yeah, like that'll be quite a bit more like intense than what I'm doing now. So yeah, I definitely got to ease into it and take it slow.
Gotcha.
But
And
like I feel good when I do it. I feel great after jujitsu. You know, like it's a bit nerve wracking before, but yeah, I always feel good after it. And everyone at the gym I'm at now is really nice. So yeah, it's been a good experience. Nothing negative to say yet.
well, good, good. And the class that you take right now, how long is the class?
It's about 2 or 3 hours.
Okay, that's good, good. Because whenever I think about a class, I think 1 hour, maybe 90 minutes, sometimes depending. So I was like, so you're doing 2 to 3 hours, so that's actually really good. At least for once per week, you're getting some time on the mat
Mm-hmm.
in there. And I think once you start going more frequently too, a lot of the issues that you're having as far as like your cardio that comes with with the training as it goes about, you're
Mm-hmm.
being agile, and just having a better understanding of jiu-jitsu on the mat, because we could watch all the fights in the world. I remember I was in the same boat, watching UFC left and right, just watching so much MMA, watching Strike Force, watching Elite XC, just watching all this MMA and seeing the grappling. I thought I understood
Mm-hmm.
until I got out there, and then I realized I didn't understand. I was like, oh my
Right.
god, like this is so different. The movements are
Yeah.
so different, and cardio is huge.
Yeah. Yeah, I knew it was going to be hard. Like I had no like delusions that like I didn't think I was going to go in there, especially being a smaller guy. I didn't think I was going to go in there and kick ass. But I was sort of in the same boat. Like I'd watched a lot of jujitsu and like researched it a lot, and like just like even just remembering like the steps of like getting into a key lock, like just like the coach would say, tell us the steps, and then okay, grab a partner and try it, and like I'd already forget like half the steps. Like
Yep.
there's so much to know, and like everything's broken down into such little steps, which is great, which is what makes jujitsu great. But yeah, like it takes some practice to get used to memorizing all that stuff, and yeah, like burning it into your brain.
Are you more of a visual learner or kinetic learner? Like, what works best for you in terms of absorbing it?
Yeah, I think a visual, like usually like it the best way for me is like if they actually do it right in front of me. But even then sometimes like sitting there and watching it and then getting in the position and actually being in the position, you feel like you're everything's backwards and like yeah.
Trust me, we've all been there, my friend, and you think it's gonna get better, but it doesn't. It's like you're like, oh wait, what? Like coach is like, all right, everybody got that? Any questions? No questions. All right, and break. And you're like, wait, what the fuck did we just like? When you get with your partners, like, you want to go first? You want me to go first?
Yeah,
Hoping that they
yeah,
say I'll go first.
yeah. That's the big thing. Like, oh, who wants to go first? I'm always like, you go
I,
first.
I like when we do something complicated and I know that I don't know, and I'm like, I'm pretty sure they don't know, so I'm gonna go ahead and go first, and just start doing some other shit until coach comes over like, what the fuck are you doing? It's like, oh, like like I need help. Um, but I mean, even though those kind of hurdles exist, I think there's still a lot of benefit and amazement from what you're doing, because not everyone is even willing to try this.
Hmm.
So you know when you look at like, I have so many friends that I'm like, dude, you should try it out. Come out there and train. They just have no desire to do it for one reason or the other. They have their preconceived notions. I got one buddy. Remember, we talked about martial arts, just growing up in our 20s. And he's like, I wouldn't want to do a martial arts class because you see on TV shows, they put you in there with a 10-year-old kid, like you're a grown man learning Taekwondo with 10-year-olds, and it's like, well, I'm pretty sure that's a TV show, so it's not completely real. But also, and then meanwhile, I'll tell stories about when I first started at Ivy League. I did my trial class with a 14-year-old who beat the shit out of me, and I'm pretty sure that doesn't make anyone feel any better about one. So I was like, so I'm going to get beat up by a kid? Like,
Yeah.
no, I just happened to get beat up by a kid that day, but you'll probably get beat up by me because if we're going there together, I'm going to try to make sure that I'm working with you and I will take care of you and make sure you're grasping it. But there are a lot of people who they won't even consider doing it. And the fact is, I don't try to use fear tactics. So I say, well, if you don't train, you're gonna get mugged or you're gonna get robbed. Like, I think it is good though for mental health, your physical health, for me, emotional health, because there's some days I need to get humbled. There's some days I'm a shitty person. I go to
Hmm.
jiu-jitsu and get my ass kicked. And I'm like, maybe I shouldn't have been so mean to that other person,
Hmm.
you know? So,
Yeah,
no,
yeah, it's definitely humbles you, and I agree that it's huge for your mental health. Like just going through all the surgeries and being sick and stuff. Like I've read a lot about trauma and like uh, the effect that can have on you. And one thing I've understood about trauma from reading about it is like a good way to like get past it is to put yourself in these dicey situations and come out okay. So in jujitsu, you're doing that constantly. You're constantly in combat with somebody, and at the end of the day, you're all right. Like you survive it. Like even if you don't win the round, like it's and I think that's good for your trauma and good for like yeah, just getting over things.
for sure. I definitely like the ideal of, training and just kind of using this as, like, I don't want to say use jujitsu as therapy because
Hmm.
I know that that's a big thing. People are like, jiu-jitsu is not therapy. Therapy is therapy. Shut up. Everybody does
Hmm.
therapy different. But I don't want to say, substitute, jiu-jitsu for, talking to someone. But I do see the benefit, though, if you're having a bad day, go train, get lost in your reps, get lost in the wonderment of learning something new. If there's a move that you've been working on and you've been struggling, go get lost in trying to figure it out. And that's I don't consider that, oh, ignoring your problems. I think when people say, oh, well, so you're just going to ignore your problems, it's like, well, no, I used to work in customer service and I get cussed out by people for no reason. Like, when I say no reason, it's like they have a reason, but the reason that they're cussing me out has nothing to do with me. They're mad at the company, but I happen to be the person there. So yeah, I'm gonna go to jujitsu and get lost in thought because I don't want to worry about that person anymore. Versus going to the bar and drinking myself into a stupor and being mad at this person that is probably off living their life now and not thinking about me.
Hmm.
So jujitsu, really the gym period is a healthy outlet, I think, but jujitsu I think is a better one. So another question that I kind of wonder about with having an ostomy for you, when it comes to dietary, you know, you you primarily stick to meat and select vegetables. Um, like drinking, do you have any issues with alcohol? If you do drink alcohol at all, like in life, sometimes people are just like, I don't drink, but if you do drink, do you have any issues with it, or do you metabolize it fine?
Yeah, like I haven't drank since COVID started, just because I stopped going out. So like I stopped drinking. So I haven't been drinking, but like I do drink. And I'll probably drink again. Uh, Mostly I drink beer, and that's about it. It didn't bother me, no. Like I didn't have any issues with it. Like I never drank a lot. Like I wasn't like a beer in the fridge kind of guy, beer
Yeah,
after work kind of guy. I was more like if I was like out on a date or like out with my buddies, I'll have a beer, that kind of stuff. But yeah, I didn't drink. I quit hard alcohol a long time ago, like just for my mental health. But yeah, beer like seemed to go down good. Yeah, it doesn't seem to bother me.
Okay, all right. Like I'm asking a lot of these questions because again, I my entire life I'm the only one that I knew. So it's like if I'm going through something, it's like, is this something that all of us go through, or is it just me? So
Mm-hmm.
even though I do a beer review show and I drink beer for the show, like beer does give me fits.
Mm-hmm.
I've had some rough, but like college years specifically because that was the binge drinking time where it's like, oh, like have a water. Nah, I'd rather have a beer.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's the right attitude. Nah, it's all right. Now I'm gonna go for a jog. But now I don't drink as much, obviously, as the college years. But even when we do the beer review shows, we split a beer. Like usually a 12-ounce can of beer will just, you know, actually my co-host pours. It, it's probably more, I would say 70-30 his way. Because I'll look at his glass. I'm like, dude, there's a lot of beer in your glass.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't think I'm gonna be able to get a good sample in with the little bit that you just left me or
Yeah.
whatever. But I do tend to have some issues with beer myself. That's why I was wondering, is like, is that, and it could just be me. It could just be
Yeah,
how,
and like
how
also there's the fact too, I guess, that I've got the ileostomy. Like so much fluid get like doesn't touch me. You know, it comes out the other end.
gotcha.
So like drinking beer, even though I'm a pretty small guy, if I pace myself, I can drink tons of beer because it just it doesn't touch me.
Gotcha.
But I think that might be part of it. I was also working on like a documentary series about beer at like craft breweries, and like after and before every shoot we'd be half in the bag before we even started. And yeah, like it started to become a bit much. But
I can imagine. And I'm thinking, honestly, it is probably just more so me when it comes to, like I said, it could be the yeast. It could just be the type of beers we're drinking because we're drinking a lot of heavier IPAs and
mhm.
hazies and
Yeah,
sours. And
which I don't like. I drink like dirty, cheap dad beer, like old Milwaukee.
oh my goodness. uh, like first off, I gotta call it that, just dirty, dirty cheap bad beer.
Yeah.
It's funny. My co-host and I, we always like that. That was us for years, and then once we started doing this other show, we're drinking because it happened on accident. We're just sitting here, we're like, let's do a podcast. All right, start recording, just start talking shit, and we're drinking while we're doing it. Then we decided, what would you give this beer on a 1 to 10 scale? And then it just started happening. He showed up the next week with 3 different beers. Well, at first when we started doing it, he showed up with a bunch of beer. I was
Hmm.
like, dude, I'm not trying to get fucking drunk every Saturday night that we do this, dude. This is ridiculous. Then he understood. Was like, okay, let me tone it down a little bit. So he bring 3 beers, and we split the 3 beers. And then he started bringing different kinds of beers. Then he started like it became an adventure for him to go find different kind of beers. So like now when I go to parties, if I'm about to go, I'm like, all right, let me hit the store. Let me see what did we review. Okay, we gave this a high score. Let's go ahead and take this to the party. You show up to the party, and everyone's got Coors Light,
Yeah.
like Miller Light,
Hmm.
stuff like that. And I'm like,
Yeah.
all right, and I'm about to drink this 9%er. Damn.
Yeah. Is there a big craft beer scene in your area?
Um, there are actually quite a few like breweries around here, more than I thought.
Hmm.
Before I didn't know until we started doing the one podcast. My buddy would tell me about it, and it's like, yeah, it's like a lot of beers are Maryland based. We get mostly Maryland based beers or a lot of East Coast beers. You'll get some stuff from PA, up in Pennsylvania, here in Maryland, Virginia, stuff like that. But for me, when it comes to all the stats and the questions about the beers, he does a lot of good notes. I'm just here to drink the beer and say I don't like this,
Mm-hmm.
like, or I love this. This is
Yeah.
delicious. Like like the way my scale works is if I base it off of if I'm at a party and you hand this to me, would I drink it?
Mm-hmm.
If the answer is yes, then we're in the right direction. In most beers that we've had, it's usually in that pocket. But I'm also the kind of asshole that I'll rate my beer higher because it's got a higher alcohol percentage. So it's like if it's a 12%, it's like, ooh, that's a guaranteed good time.
Yeah.
Whereas a real beer reviewer is like, oh well, it's a little hoppy, and I'm like, yes, I'm just here to fucking get plastered. Like I'm here to party.
Yeah.
I'm not here to taste.
Yeah.
You know? So your work, like in film and stuff, because you know, from time to time, I shuffle through your or not Facebook, Instagram. I'm like, oh my goodness, like look at all this. This looks really really cool. Like, what kind of, how did that become, a thing for you? Was it just an interest you've always had, or did it just like for some things I know like podcasting just happened for me?
Yeah, yeah. Like honestly, I'm not even a big film guy. Like I'm not a big movie guy. But like it started like being in high school. I was playing in bands, like punk rock bands, and so it started off as like recording music. Recording in the studio, and that's what I started doing. And I went to school for that, and that's what I did for a job for a while, and then eventually just it went from recording music to doing sound for film and like a lot of documentary films. And um, I haven't done very many scripted films, but like I'll be doing some here this year. Just some D-list Hallmark films, but yeah, mostly documentary work. And I'll do like the location sounds, so like the actual being on location and recording the audio. And then I'll also do the sound mixing, so being in the studio and mixing the audio.
That's one of those things that you would think like, oh, this guy does a podcast. He knows what the fuck he's doing. I don't. Like, more often than not, I'm going to take this video here that we're recording through now. I'm going to convert it to audio, and this
Yeah,
is what y'all get.
yeah. I mean, check me out. Like I just like basically said I'm an audio engineer, and I'm on here with my my fucking
Hey,
iPod mic.
hey. I mean, it works. It works.
Yeah,
That's how I always look at it. It's like it's not about like I said with beer. I'm not here for the taste of the beer. I'm here for the function of the beer. Same
yeah,
thing with your headphones, your mic. Hey, it ain't got to be pretty. It's just got to work.
yeah,
That's always been my philosophy in life. And I got friends who really hate that I say, oh, it's good enough. And they're like, well, good enough is something lazy people say. No, it's people who don't stress. We say that. I don't stress about shit. The only time I stress is like when it comes to the podcast, at least, if there'll be a period where I overbook guests and I'll have like so many episodes like just in the can. And I'm like, oh shit. Like, how do I get all these episodes out? Because I'll tell people it's like, okay, your episode's coming out this date, and it's like your shit's not coming out for 5 weeks, and then sometimes I'll forget to book people. Like, well, so you and I were supposed to record, I believe, last week.
yeah. Last week.
So, and I didn't. I was like, when you messaged, was like, you're not feeling. I was like, okay, no big deal. I got it covered, and I'm looking through. I was like, oh fuck, I don't have it covered. And I got an email from a buddy. We had just had a party the week before, and I recorded something at his house. And he was like, hey, I'm not going to use this. I already got enough stuff from that weekend. And, this is jiu-jitsu. That's not my bag. So I'm going to send it to you. And I was like, thank you so much. Like, those are the times when I stress, is when I'm like, shit, what am I going to do? I
Yeah,
guess I don't want to record my 7-year-old again. Like,
yeah, yeah.
it's not like she would love it, but
Yeah. It's definitely not easy. Like continuing to come up with ideas week after week after week. Like people like who to record and like getting it all organized. Yeah, it's like it's quite the task.
Yeah, and I think, like, I was just speaking with a young lady from Australia, very very nice young lady, and as we're talking about me doing the podcast, and she was like, you like you do a lot of stuff. Like, she's like, I do a lot of stuff just to keep me out of trouble.
Hmm.
Like, if I'm not recording a podcast, editing a podcast, uh, posing action figures in this basement, or doing jujitsu, or watching jujitsu, being with my family, going to the playground with my daughter, any of these things. If I'm not doing any of that stuff, I'm probably doing something nefarious. I'm probably getting drunk and then
Hmm.
just getting rowdy at a bar for no reason. I haven't done that in years. So a big credit to keeping me out of trouble is jiu-jitsu, becoming a father, you know, finding hobbies that keep me like invested in what's going on. So even though I might stress a little bit with doing the podcast, I love the stress. So
Hmm. Yeah,
yeah,
and it's working for you. Like you got quite the Instagram following, and yeah, like people seem to be
accidental.
listening. Yeah, it's
That is,
working. Whatever you're doing,
I mean, I don't know. I'm not sure.
it's hard to get people to listen to your shit, man. Like,
That's true.
and people are listening, so you're doing something right.
I mean, I'd like to think that it's just that we're being people.
Hmm.
I listen to some podcasts, and you can tell when people are, putting on an act. There's a lot of social media stuff right now, where you'll see a video and people really buy into it, like, oh my goodness, whatever it may be, to get a reaction. It's like, you guys can't tell that's staged. People don't respond that way. Like that's just not real.
Hmm.
And I think that's one thing I like to think that my podcast, my friends over at Nerd Rage Radio, uh, you know, all their collected, shows, there's a genuine, like, you're just being you.
Hmm.
And sometimes that gets me in trouble, but at least I'm being honest though. Like if I say something that's not politically correct, it's not because I'm a dick. It's because, like, honestly, I don't care. Like,
Hmm.
like uh, you know, I'm all in favor of everybody being who they want to be, but please don't ask me what my opinion is on it, because chances are I'm going to say I don't care, or I'm going to say I don't know enough about it, or I'm just going to say something really out of pocket that I wasn't planning to say, and then I'm like, oh shit, where'd that
Yeah,
come from?
I mean that's real. Like a lot of people don't care.
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
really, when you think about it.
Yeah. I think people try to act like they care, and they get
Hmm.
outraged, and it's like, you don't have to do that. You could just,
Yeah.
if you don't have an opinion about, um, you know, beer, and who they're sponsoring now, like, you don't have to get upset about it. You don't have to care. Like, I haven't drank Bud Light, not because they had a trans spokesperson. I just don't drink because it's like the beers that we've been drinking now. It does what I needed to do fast. If I drink Bud
Hmm.
Light, I'm gonna have to drink 7 of them,
Yeah.
to at least feel something. Where if I drink, a fucking Victory hazy sour monkey or something, you
Yeah.
know, 2 of those, and I am good to go, son.
Yeah. Yeah. Like a
So
Bud Light's like water compared to like a good IPA.
yeah, so, and that's not to say that, those light beers don't have their place either, but argument is not where the place is, at least over, why you're drinking it versus, no, I'm not drinking because of this sponsor, or I'm not drinking it because it tastes like shit.
Hmm.
Like, we are not the same. But I mean, ultimately, what it really comes down to is, like you said, a lot of people don't care.
Hmm.
And I had someone ask me about something a few years back, and that's what it says. Like, I don't care. And she was like, "What? How could you not care?" And I was like, "Because I don't want to be stressed. Like,
Yeah.
I just want to eat this chicken salad and
Yeah.
move on with my day."
Yeah. Yeah. It's
So
a lot, man, these days. Like with like the internet the way it is now, and politics becoming so cartoonish.
yeah,
Like it's just like if you cared about every little thing, like you'd go out of your mind.
yeah. Trust me, my wife does it a lot. She'll send me a video. I'm like, I don't even care, man. It's just like, fuck. Is this something like that I'm supposed to get mad about? It's like, well, you gotta care. I don't have to.
Sometimes it's just nice to just consume mindless content.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
I fucking watch a shitload of reality TV. It's horrible. Fuck. It's terrible. It's terribly made and it's just garbage. But like, I just shut my brain off and watch 2 hours of that shit.
Yeah. I mean, and sometimes that's what you have to do to kind of get through. Like, if especially if you had a stressful day, you
Mm-hmm.
come home, you're like, what can I do to just kind of decompress? You're like, for me, I come home and I turn on Hulu and I watch WWE, like, like old WWE, or I'll watch old 80s and 90s sitcoms.
Mm-hmm.
Just like,
Yeah.
yeah,
I watch a ton of old wrestling as well. Yeah. Like a few hours a week at least.
yeah, yeah. I would say no less than maybe 3 to 4 hours. And granted, like some of the programs are 2 hours long themselves, if not three. So it depends. I might even, go on an app and watch, like old WrestleMania, shit like that, or
Mm-hmm.
old WCW. And it's just like, huh, like, just kind of living in the nostalgia. But guess what? I'm not worried about what's going on, like
Right.
outside my doors.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a good way to shut your brain off and yeah, escape for sure.
Once in a while, I'll jump on Instagram because I got to do my post for Instagram. So I go to the comments for entertainment and just like see who's got what to say. It's like, huh, that wasn't very nice of them. Like, I don't know if I should be offended because of the poor grammar or what they are trying to call me, but one way or the other.
Yeah.
But yeah, as long as we're all happy, as long as we're all safe and healthy, that's what counts.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, James, let's go ahead and wrap up here.
Mm-hmm.
I want to first off thank you again for sharing your time with us,
Yeah, thanks for
sharing
having me.
sharing your
I
story.
hope it's interesting enough for. I know I'm not like super over the top, so hopefully it's interesting enough for your listeners there.
I I would prefer you not be over the top, to be quite honest. I think a big thing again is you're genuine, you're you, and
Mm-hmm.
that resonates with people, and that shines through. I think stronger than anything, because if you came on here and you're telling this super colorful story and going into detail, I mean, if that's your personality, that's your personality. But just you feel very reserved and just kind of like, I don't want to say soft spoken, but like, like calculated in your answer. I knew a guy in high school. He was very intelligent, but he didn't speak a lot
Mm-hmm.
because he understood that he wasn't great with words. So he only spoke when he needed to speak. And this
Mm-hmm.
shit was stressful, but appreciated because it's like Silent Bob almost. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, this guy is only going to talk when he has something to say. So I feel like you're kind of like look, when it's go time, you're ready to talk, but more often than not, you're like, look, man, I ain't got to say shit.
Yeah,
So,
not a big talker. That's why I don't have my own podcast. Otherwise, I'd have one myself. But
hey, I get it. I get it. My grandfather's not a big talker, and I invited him on as a guest. And then I was like, you know what? Never mind. Let's see where this is going. So, but James, thank you so much again. Thank you for sharing your story, your
yeah,
time. And before we get out of here, are there any shout outs or mentions you'd like to drop for us?
yeah. I want to shout out another ostomy guy that does jujitsu out of UK, Luke Cottrell. Luke Cottrell. I can't remember his name, but he goes by Goose without guts. You can find him on Instagram or YouTube under Goose Without Guts. He makes videos and documents his jujitsu journey. So
Okay.
yeah, I want to shout him out and And yeah, I think that's about it. Like, yeah, shout out this podcast because yeah, like I've been listening to a bunch of episodes. I really enjoyed it and enjoyed being on.
Well, thank you. I appreciate, you know, appreciate you listening and appreciate the shout out as well. So always find that, again, if people are willing to share, I'm willing to listen. I'm willing to have
Yeah,
them on. So
and yeah, I guess I should shout out the gym in Brandon that I go to, Brandon Academy of Martial Arts. Also goes by WAMMA, WAMMA.
all right, awesome. I'll make sure to get them tagged in the notes and everything, and also make sure that anyone that's interested can find them and go follow. Uh, Otherwise, as always, for everyone listening, thank you. I do appreciate the hell out of everyone. If y'all have any questions, concerns, criticisms, always feel free to reach out to me. You can find me at bjj.wiki on Instagram, Off the Mats Podcast on Instagram. I'm all over Instagram, so you can find me. I think I have 14 accounts. I don't use all of them, but I'm out there, so you can find me. Shoot me a message if you're mad at me. Let me know why. There's a guy I work with at work. He told me the other day he was mad at me, and I said, "Okay, that's cool. All I ask is that you talk to me about it. So if y'all mad at me, let me know that too. Right? Look, like I like to say, you talk to me, I'll talk back. It's that simple. I want to give a big shout out to my friends over there at Nerd Rage Radio, Bobby, Chris, Joe, Marilyn, Phil, Ricky, Ticky, um, Raul, all the crew, everybody, all of you. Thank yous. If it weren't for them, I wouldn't be podcasting. So there's that. I appreciate those guys. And I was on the most recent episode. I want to say it's 409, maybe 407. No, 407. Episode 407. I don't remember what we talked about, but I know there's a lot of nonsense going on, and I probably said a lot of bad words. Also, want to do a shout out to my other show. So you like horror? If you like scary movies, go check that out. We are going to be talking about an upcoming episode. We're going to be reviewing a movie called Killer Kites. It's a movie that we're going to review. It was sent in to us, so I appreciate that. So if y'all got some shit y'all want to send to me, I'll watch it and tell you how I feel. I'm an attention whore, so let's do it. And then last but not least, big shout out to my guest here, Mr. James. Thank you again for doing this.
Yeah, thank
And
you.
uh,
And hey, man, thanks for putting your stuff out on the internet. Like I know you said you're not very fond of being on camera, but those videos really started it for me. Like seeing someone else do it, and like, yeah, it means a lot.
good. I'm glad it helped someone. Like I told my coach, if it reaches one person, that's it counts. It matters.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm glad it reached you, and I'm glad it really gave you kind of that push to
Mm-hmm.
not give up after being told no, we don't feel comfortable having you trained here. So thank you just for checking that out. Thank you for being the guest, and I'd love to have you back on again. Even though I know you're not a big talker, I think we can have some fun conversations, my
Yeah,
friend.
yeah. Maybe once I start my regular jiu-jitsu classes and get more into it, I'll come back on. I'd definitely like to come back on for sure.
Absolutely, I would be more than happy to have you back on. So we'll get that set up, my friend. All right, and everyone else, again, we love you, appreciate you. You guys keep listening. We're gonna keep making these shows. So thank you, everyone, and goodbye.
They with it. Now let me sing a song.